Alright, so here we go. It's a nice rainy day here on the 4th day of June. And this meditation that I'm about to read begins with a discussion of citation of Lao Tzu. It has to do with humility. Lao Tzu locates the wisdom of the sage in the emptiness of desire that unfolds as humility. Quote, therefore the sage holds in his embrace the one thing of humility and manifests it to all the world. He is free from self-display, and therefore he shines, from self-assertion, and therefore he is distinguished, from self-boasting, and therefore his merit is acknowledged, from self-complacency, and therefore he acquires superiority. It is because he is thus free from striving that therefore no one in the world is able to strive with him. The title given to the chapter is The Increase Granted to Humility. Humility here designates the virtue of poetic dwelling and describes the quality of the one who has emptied himself and taken upon the pathway of learning. Lao Tzu reminds us that the sage, as teacher and guide, stands out as the one who bears a message, as the one who conveys wisdom. To convey wisdom is to be the one who carries and transmits, and thereby makes wisdom known to another. The sage conveys wisdom with her dwelling, with her humility, which, as Lao Tzu says, is something she holds and offers to all the world. This is why we have said that the sage, as messenger, offers her message by indicating the gathering directive of the word, logos. And in conveying this appeal also points towards a specific pathway down, which she intends to guide others along. Her poetic dwelling as a modality of letting learning happen is a bearing, a directing, a pointing. She bears humility and thereby conveys wisdom. As we have indicated above, to bear is to, quote, show, carry visibly, display, but also, quote, to be known by, have, a kindred relationship. The sage announces her claim upon all things, renounces her claim upon all things, she empties herself and becomes full of wisdom. This is the increase granted to one who empties herself, who submits herself to the other, and in this submission is most humble. The one who empties herself is filled with wisdom, but it is precisely this emptying, this renunciation, that signifies the reception of wisdom. To receive wisdom is to be spared from the one-sidedness, the isolation of the ego. To be free from self is to be with others, to build and maintain community. Thus, wisdom manifests to all the world in the bearing that shows and displays the originary modality of hearing, of submitting oneself to the other, the submission that represents the invitation to poetic dwelling, the cultivation of friendship. To be wise is to attend to the other and to enter into poetic dialogue and thereby to establish the conditions for the actuality of a community of peace. The emptying of self, described by Lao Tzu in the preceding excerpt, as the emergence of freedom, implies the reception of the other. Thus, this humility that is shown to all the world is the bearing of freedom. To be wise is to be free, but to be free is to live with others in a community of peace. To live in a community of peace is to live together in the openness of communication, in the free exchange of poetic saying. This exchange is free because the offering bears the vestige of renunciation. Each saying within dialogue is a submission to painstaking listening. Thus each saying is poetic, and the more poetic the saying, the more open and ready for the unforeseen. To be ready for the unforeseen is to be waiting upon the ineffable, to welcome the unpredictable, the imaginative, speculative response. Humility emerges with the one who, in offering up their saying, cultivates peace by entrusting himself to others. In Entrusting oneself to others, one cultivates the preserve of peace by building the shelter of openness. To bear humility is to contribute to the creation and maintenance of an open, free community of peace. To dwell together poetically is to be steadfastly open and entrusted to one another. To dwell in this manner is to dwell in the wisdom of humility. The sage who bears the wisdom of humility also bears the burden of directing the building of this dwelling. The sage is thus the one who is most empty, free, and wise. To be most empty is to be most open, and to be most open is to be most mindful. As we have said, mindfulness identifies the conscious of the community. The sage is capable of directing because he bears the conscience of the community. He is most empty of self and thereby stands steadfastly open to the community as a collective of others. Lao Tzu writes, quote, "The sage has no invariable mind of his own. He makes the mind of the people his own mind." And that's how it ends. And yeah, check out the blog, Duarte Being Learning, for context, commemoration. That's what these videos are doing. I'm reading each day meditations that I originally wrote 10 years ago. So each day I'm picking up these meditations. What I just read, I wrote 10 years ago, this day, the 4th of June, and ultimately all of the material that I'm reading was published in this book, Being and Learning. There it is. And what I just read is from chapter 7, and it's pages 185 to 186 from chapter 7. So, there you have it.